Hey YouTubers, welcome back to Desert Have a Garden. Today I am in the kitchen and I will be making a cranberry sauce using the hibiscus that we harvested in our last video. So this is the Thai Red Roselle, and I'll link up to that previous video so that you can see that one of how we harvested all the hibiscus. But we are going to use this to make a cranberry sauce that's perfect for turkey or however you like to eat it. However, it will have much fewer carbohydrates and it won't have all the sugars. So if you're diabetic or if you have concerns about sugars in your diet, this is the perfect recipe for you. So I'm using a recipe that is from a blog called Low Carb Papa, and I will link to that down below in the comments so you have the link to the recipe. But I'm going to show you how we are going to make this cranberry sauce. First things first, we get all of our ingredients and equipment needed in order to make the recipe to make sure you don't fall short somewhere. So we will need 2 cups of dried hibiscus flower that you have here, and we will need the zest of an orange. The recipe calls for the zest of 2 oranges. However, I don't like that much orange flavor, so I will be using the zest. I'm going to try it another time using orange extract to see if I can get the same result. However, for right now, I'm just using the orange. Need the zest of an orange next, so that is done by using the small grater. You just kind of get off the outside. You don't want to get all the way into the orange. And then you take it out from the inside. And there's our orange zest. And here I have grated ginger, fresh ginger from 1 knob of ginger. That's about this big of a ginger piece. And I find it easiest to peel and grate when it is frozen, so I keep it in the freezer. Additionally, we will need gelatin, and it calls for 4 envelopes, but I buy it in bulk like this, the gelatin powder, and so I will need 2 tablespoons of the gelatin, or that's again 4 envelopes. We need a 1/2 cup of erythritol, that's our sweetener, so it is no calories, no glycemic impact, and then we will also use stevia. It calls for glycerate, but I don't have it, so I'm going to use sweet drops, and it calls for 8 drops. I'm going to use 1 squeeze and see how that turns out. I think it'll be plenty sweet for me. You'll need a pot for boiling the water and steeping it, and additionally you'll need something to use as molds. I was considering using silicone cupcake molds in order to do this, but I think these little glass jars would be cute. These are 1/2 pints, and here's even a 1/4 pint. I thought this one would be nice to give to a friend that is doing a low carb diet, and so that way they'll just have a small little portion for Thanksgiving. So now that we have all of our equipment, the water needs to be brought to a boil, and this was actually just boiling, so I'm going to call this good. And we will add the 2 cups of hibiscus, the orange, and the ginger, all to our recipe. So I'm measuring my 2 cups of hibiscus. It's about 2 cups. The zest of 1 orange goes into the water. And the grated ginger from 1 knob of ginger. Now this will just steep in here like this for a full hour. without the heat turned on or anything else. We're just going to let it sit covered and allow it to steep in the hot water. I have allowed the hibiscus, ginger, and orange to set in the hot water for an hour, and the water has actually cooled off quite a bit now, and you can see that we have this rich pink color because it has filtered into the water. Now you are going to strain it to get all the solids out. So I'm going to put it through a small filter. So you want to have a nice clear liquid there. And then you're left with these solids, and those will just get discarded. You can put those in the compost or in the trash. Using the same pan, you are going to bring the liquid back to a simmer. However, you're going to reserve about a half cup of this mixture in order to bloom the gelatin. So I'm going to put some in another dish there to do the gelatin. And meanwhile, while this over here is coming to a simmer. At this point is when we will also add the sweetener. So I'm turning on the stove to bring it to a simmer, heat it back up. I will add the half cup of erythritol. And mix that in. It will melt down and incorporate as it heats up. And I won't add the sweet drops or the stevia until after I remove this from the heat. I'm not sure if the heat affects it, but I'm going to leave it alone. So we need to bloom the gelatin in this liquid here. And recall that it was either 4 packets or 2 tablespoons. I'm going to add the 2 tablespoons. And while I add it, I will be stirring it in so it doesn't clump up. There's 1 tablespoon. And the gelatin is what gives the thickness and the jelly type consistency to the cranberry sauce. Otherwise, it's basically just a tea. And you could drink it as a tea at this point with the sweetener added into it, or without the sweetener if you prefer a bitter tea. Okay, I'm not sure if you can tell, but this is actually getting very thick. But it looks pretty well incorporated here. And we will allow this to come to a simmer. We have a good simmer going here, a rapid simmer. So I turned off the heat. And we already have the sweetener in there, not the stevia. This is the part that has the gelatin added, and you can see that it's super thick. So now this is going to be stirred in to this. I'm going to remove it from the heat there. So we're going to mix this in. that well. Make sure we get all of the gelatin mixture. Okay, that's stirred in really well. At this point, we will add 1 squirt of the sweet drops. If you have the stevia glycerate, you would add 8 drops of it. You can take out a little sample and test it for sweetness to make sure that it's going to be sweet enough for you. And then the next thing is to pour it right into our containers or molds. You can use a used can that's BPA free and fill that back up after you've rinsed it out, or you can use whatever kind of molds you want. Like I said in the beginning, I had considered using silicone muffin cups to make small ones, but I like these jars for this. I'm using my jar funnel to make sure that I don't make too much of a mess here. And the reason I'm using these jars is because you can see that there's no shoulder on the jar. If there were a shoulder, it would make it very difficult to get it out once it's all hardened and cooled. Okay, it looks like we're going to get 3 half pints plus the 1/4 pint out of this batch, maybe even more. I'm going to have to collect some more jars in order to finish that. But at this point, what I will do is put the lids on these. And so I have some new ball lids. And you will cool them at least 4 hours, but ideally overnight. And because tomorrow is Thanksgiving, that's what I will be doing, is cooling them overnight, and then we will see what they look like in the morning. I'm probably going to end this video here, and I might do a new video to show you what it looks like on Thanksgiving Day with our turkey. But you can see here it's still liquidy, but it will cool off in the refrigerator and become really jelly. So if you found this useful, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more updates in the future.